I thought her head was going to fly off the way she yanked it to face me directly. "Say what now?" Fauve demanded. "You're supposed to stay with us for the next 50 years. It hasn't even been 50 weeks." She snapped, and I was quiet for a few seconds while I thought of how to say this. "I'm also not supposed to eat humans, not even the foul-tasting ones that even the gods of your most popular surviving cults know I couldn't swallow if I wanted to. I attacked one of your people. My government is involved. Your government is involved. They may both decide the easiest way to resolve it is to deport me in your people's case, or recall me in my people's case." I sat up straight and opened my hands out in front of my body like I was weighing two roughly equally weighty objects, and turned my head to face her. My hands bobbed up and down as if weighing the two situations. "No more Bailey, no more problems, or no more Bailey, no more problems. Both your planet and mine may come to the same conclusion. Do you want to go?" Fauve asked. Her lower lip quivered until she bit down on it. Before she could get teary-eyed, I violently shook my head in denial. "No, of course not. I've spent years studying your species as my specialization. If I go back, all that is wasted, and getting another exoplanetary visa to go to some other world and study them instead? No, that'll take years. Do you have any idea how it will look when they pull my file and see kicked off study planet for taking a bite out of a local?" I snorted. "I probably don't have to tell you, pretty bad." "Pretty bad." I swallowed and dropped my hands to hold on to the edge of my mattress. Fauve was still quiet. "Also, I've gotten to like humans. You're a very exciting species, always something new. Most any other species. Not to some speciesist or anything, but I can't help but think I'll find them comparatively boring." She was looking up with me with that steady gaze like she was demanding I finish saying something. I tried to force myself to look away, but I just couldn't. The human stare is a dangerous, dangerous thing. Whether for intimidation or laughter, when a human's eyes hold on to you, it's like you're hooked and can't escape. Strangely, this power of theirs is purely born from their target. They have such expressive eyes, despite being relatively small compared to some species. They say so much with just a glance that they almost don't need a language at all. I could not hold out, so I didn't. "And I'd miss you all too. A lot. I don't want to go. Maybe I can justify it by saying it would look worse if a Dlamisa fled Earth under a cloud of suspicion. Say I should stay to clear my name and let the truth come out. But governments are governments, and even the best one is inherently lazy. They want the easiest and quickest way to resolution. Dlamisa and Terran traders alike are venturing more and more to each other's worlds. More negotiations, more treaty addendums. Bad blood between us would be inconvenient toward both, and this might be a mess." "But you didn't do anything," Fauve finally ventured. I could see she was angry. Her little fists were balled up at her side, and her slender jaw was clenched. Though she never admitted it, I am sure I saw tears in her eyes that refused to fall. Human ethics are quite a curious thing. Most races have purely pragmatic ethics, nothing more. But only a handful of races feel a natural obligation to act in a particular way, and that inborn sense of wrongness was clearly alive and well inside of Fauve. "I know," I said, and meant it. "I wasn't trying to do anything wrong. I was trying to help, and I'd do it again in the span of one of my heart's beats. But this isn't about fairness or human justice. If I'm politically inconvenient, removing me removes the inconvenience. Of course, they could go after Wolfbeard. Maybe get him to plead guilty to whatever your people consider to be his crimes. If that's the case, if I remember, your justice system requires that he be allowed to face his accuser. But that is only a trial. If they want this swept under the rug as soon as possible, getting him to plead guilty will make this go away fast too. But even so?" I lowered my eyes to the floor. "What's easier? Putting me on a transport back to university? Or that?" Fauve stood up. "That's not fair," she declared and crossed her arms defensively, as if I'd accused her of something. "I know," I answered with a glum, heavy voice. "Isn't there anything I can do? What if we don't want you to leave? What if we want you to stay?" she demanded. She glanced toward my door. The faint sound of Michael crying reached us from the floor above. I will never not be surprised by the power of human lungs. But as to her question, I had no answer. My fingers tensed on the mattress edge. "I don't know. You can certainly express your own wishes, but maybe it isn't for the best for me to stay. There are some xenophobic humans out there, maybe not many, but they could still make trouble for you if I'm around." "But you're good. Why would—" She cut herself off. Despite being years away from full maturity in name, She was a highly intelligent child and reached the inevitable conclusion all on her own even faster than I did. It doesn't matter if I'm good. It doesn't matter if your cults all declare me a saint. To some of them, even if they let me join hands with them openly, speak for them, work for them, I will never be moved into the one of them category. I can win over people who are open-minded. I can win over those who are fair. I can't do anything with people who are convinced I'm an abomination or a danger. And to them, you'll look like a collaborator or a traitor to humanity. That can't be good. I answered her, and finally regretted at least one trait of human nature. This sucks, Fauve summed up, the knuckles of her fingers turned white with tension. Tell me about it, I answered, and the baby upstairs ended his crying just as William's voice carried downstairs. Fauve, Bailey, food's ready. Let's go eat, Fauve suggested, and her stomach rumbled audibly. Let's. I agreed, and when she left the room, I followed, leaving her data pad behind and oblivious to the string of messages that were rapidly populating the screen behind us. 50 years. It was supposed to last 50 years, and I might not be able to stay 50 weeks. When humans adopt someone, it changes you in ways you don't expect. My professor, marvelous academic that he was, brought a dozen different species with him to Earth to live with various branches of the Walker family tree. No doubt to learn whether or not humans could adopt and bond with those as easily as his own. And more precisely, to learn how such a process impacted those species' mental states. My own mental state. I wasn't sure how to process it. At this stage, it was a struggle. The academic Dlemisa, who had never experienced an outburst in his entire life, was now passionate and emotional enough to do what I did. I regret that I still cannot properly find the words to explain it. Perhaps there are no words in any language. Perhaps that is for the best. What I did know was that I'd somehow made peace with the possibility of losing all my preparation time for an important and highly paid specialization. What was my everything was now nothing to me anymore. I followed Fauve up the stairs and found Rebecca seated at the table with Michael in his high chair while she fed him. He began to clap when he saw me. Funny little thing, giant smile on his face and messy hands coated with red ravioli sauce. Rebecca ignored the flying droplets and turned her head in my direction. At least that's over with for now, she said. Her eyes went from me to past me to glare at the door leading outside. William was there in the doorway speaking to security. I doubted she caught every word, but now that I was upstairs, I did. So we can be sure that won't be a problem again. We apologize for the trouble. It seems there was a leak yesterday. It made its way out to various sorts. By the time the judge signed the order, the story was already out. Just keep indoors for now. Order what you need delivered until a press conference can be arranged. Given the circumstances, I've called in a favor. There's a guy, he was about to call all this quits, but he owes me for something a long time ago. He's a media expert, doesn't normally do this anymore, but he'll step up just this once. He will want to brief you. But please don't worry. It may seem like it's getting worse, but that's just because people are filling in the gaps with their own stories, and stories fed to them by men like that. It was a human guard who spoke, and through the windows facing the porch, I caught sight of his 3 comrades spread out on a long line with their arms relaxed and heads turning left and right, scanning the area. Drones zipped around overhead to mine the perimeter. William was quiet, only the hum of drones overhead. I could feel the gears in his head turning as he thought all that over. I don't really like the idea of some slimeball spin doctor getting their claws in my family. Can't we just do it straight? The guard snorted. Sir, I've guarded celebrities, politicians, industrialists, VIPs all over the place. I've stood by for enough press gatherings to work as a media consultant myself if I ever take another bullet on this job and decide I need another. Let me tell you, how you tell the truth matters a hell of a lot more than that you tell the truth. Just trust me, the guy is a little weird, but he's exactly what you need. He's going to arrange a press conference for you tomorrow. William's shoulders stiffened as his back straightened up. I didn't see it. I didn't look at him, but I could feel the motion through his words. As if he were steeling himself for an ugly and arduous task, he said, I understand. Have them here tomorrow if you can. This needs to get settled. I won't let them get away with this. I won't. William hissed through gritted teeth. His hand was tight on the brass doorknob of his home, his entire body stiff as stone. Even though he had to look up to meet the eyes of the security guard, he somehow looked bigger to me than he had before. Yes, sir. the guard responded, and did not protest when the door was quietly closed in front of him. With their business done, I watched William's back when he took a deep breath, clapped his hands together against his cheeks, and tapped them a few times, composed himself, and turned around. Suddenly the tension was gone, and he was all smiles again before he left the living room and walked toward the kitchen. How humans present their emotional state is often intended as some form of control or influence over the situation. Rebecca was far more open. She embraced her daughter behind my back while Michael ate in blissful ignorance, and she would not let go. Fauve remained quiet, her attempt at stoicism less effective than her more experienced father. But William's happy smile masked the abiding concern that I was sure lay just beneath the surface. I can be sure of this, because William was far more open with me than with the rest of his family. Perhaps because I was a male, or an alien male, or perhaps because he didn't even realize I learned to pick up on their emotional states, so he felt no need to hide them from me. Part of why I was able to learn their emotions so readily was my sense of smell. Primates exude certain pheromones when they are in certain states. Arousal is particularly obvious, as there are various secretions, so obvious even they can tell when it is present. I was heartily glad that the mated pair I lived with tended to be very clean, and always showered after they followed pheromones through to their logical end. If they could detect the rest of those smells, they would probably never leave the shower, but their other emotional states are impossible for unenhanced humans to detect through their nostrils. Their sense of smell is simply far too weak. If they can detect the smell of fear or anger or hate or anything, it is on a level so subtle and primal that their higher mind fails to recognize it. But the benefit to that for me is that I was able to rapidly learn the emotional states of what I now considered on an unknowable level to myself, my humans. I knew I would have to have the same conversation over again, explaining to William and Rebecca what I said to Fauve. But doing that once was hard. Doing it twice in the same day? That was too much. I turned my eye toward Fauve. She gave me a nod that, with eyes closed, her mother missed, showing me she understood. William's broad smile took up most of the lower half of his face, even without my sense of smell that let me learn his moods so quickly and tie them to expressions. His jaw was obviously tense, and there was the barest beginnings of sweat on his brow. Despite his attempt at outward calm that he presented to his family, I knew he was a bundle of knots and nerves inside. The descent of the press on his home was a lot to take in, even for him. So that was something. I haven't seen that many drones since they rebooted that War Stars franchise for the 50th time. I swear they've started that damn thing over more than that ground rim game of yours, Fauve. William laughed at his own lame joke and went to the blue countertop and picked up a small curved green plate on which a few hot sandwiches sat. Dadu, it's not a reboot, Fauve corrected him. It's the triple gold anniversary very special legendary VR edition, and it comes with a creation kit. That's a re-release, not a reboot. She sounded, to me, a little indignant. Her eyes rolled as if she'd explained it 1,000 times. So they sell you the same thing over again for the full price without really changing anything. I guess that isn't quite a reboot. It can't be. There's nothing new but the charge on your bank account. William shrugged. No, at least this stays on fire. The War Stars series sucks now. Sure, I paid full price for some minor tweaks, but I paid for fire. You paid for the hot, wet, burning garbage. Fauve took a victorious bite of her sandwich just as her father sat down to eat, though it was at least a little awkward doing so, as her mother's hug had still not released itself while the silent and somehow good-natured war over games and movies seemingly waged between father and daughter. The look down his nose at her was frankly proud. You're both absurd. Re-releases are rip-offs, and War Stars and all related content are soulless cash grabs, Rebecca added in her own view, then shrugged, finally letting go of her daughter, and allowed both of them to reach for the side dishes she'd set in the middle of the table, and I went to grab a plate of my own. It says something, at least that I was now comfortable simply taking food without asking for it directly. The walker's exceptional open and welcoming nature went a long way toward setting me at ease. Michael reached for me and made fussy, short cries when I went to sit on the opposite side of the table. I stopped. His luminous eyes took me in and his hands began to clap. Rebecca had a bite of sandwich in her mouth and looked at me in silent hopefulness. There were dark circles under her eyes, and they were no less red and cracked than those of her daughter. I didn't sit all the way down. Instead, I picked my sandwich up, went around the wooden table, and sat beside Michael. His hands went straight to my fur. I inched my seat a little closer and put an arm on the tray of his seat so he could play and touch and do what tiny humans do, while I used my free hand to tear chunks away from my sandwich and gulped them down, while William informed them of everything I'd already overheard. Naturally, your mother and I will do the talking. You won't have to do anything, Fauve. I promise. William asserted Fauve, ever the clever thinker, waited until everybody's mouths were full at once before she spoke for herself. I want to be the one to talk to the press tomorrow,